That's right, we know what's happening in current wrestling affairs. Finger plus pulse equals partsFUNknown. Double or Nothing is next weekend, and one of the showcase matches is the much-anticipated Fatal 4-Way between the Fatal 4 Pillars of AEW. You don't see a lot of Fatal 4-Ways in pro wrestling. Triple threats, sure. The Naughty 9-Way, absolutely. But Fatal 4-Ways are a little bit more thin on the ground. In 2010, WWE actually dedicated a pay-per-view to them exactly one time. The pay-per-view was called Fatal 4-Way, and it was, it was fine, actually. It was actually pretty good. Each world title was contested in a Fatal 4-Way, and neither are one of the top 10 greatest Fatal 4-Ways of all time, but they're both fun, energetic matches that showcase how entertaining a match can be when you're constantly cycling in a fresh guy, like a conveyor belt of agile dudes, and also The Big Show, and also Jack Swagger. Maybe that's why they didn't do another Fatal 4 pay-per-view. Anyway, I'm Adam, hailing from partsFUNknown, and here are 10 greatest Fatal 4-Ways in wrestling history. Number 10, Sasha Banks versus Bayley versus Becky Lynch versus Charlotte, NXT TakeOver rival. Sasha Banks, Bayley, Becky Lynch and Charlotte had a period of 6 years when they were all on the main roster at the same time, and for some reason the only time WWE have run the Fatal 4-Way between the 4 horsewomen of NXT is in NXT itself. Seriously, how has this never been a WrestleMania match? They had a 4-Way with Bayley, Sasha, Charlotte and Nia, and the 3-Way with Sasha, Charlotte and Becky, but they somehow just kept missing the chance to run this match again, which is a shame because the match at NXT TakeOver rival is bloody brilliant. The pinnacle and final proof of how consistent booking can build a rock-solid women's division that ends up paying dividends for years to come. Fast-paced, fun, and ending with the Boss's first ever women's title run, it's really great. At only 12 minutes, it does feel like the pilot for an amazing TV show that never quite got made, but we're happy that we at least got this. Number 9, Chris Jericho versus Eddie Guerrero versus X-Pac versus Chris Benoit, No Way Out 2001. Here's a question for you. What is the best 3-in-a-row run of pay-per-views in wrestling history? Immediately stop answering, because unless you're thinking Royal Rumble 01, No Way Out 01, and WrestleMania X7, then you're wrong, and you owe me $50. With the 3 stages of Hell match, the underrated Trish versus Steph, Rock versus Angle, it's a gosh darn barnstormer is No Way Out 2001, and part of that is this little hidden gem of a match pitting Chris Jericho against X-Pac and the 2 best radicals, Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit, 4 dudes instrumental in WWE having the greatest mid-card of all time in 2000. Bonus points for Wah Kung Fu X-Pac, the best and worst and blurst version of X-Pac. It's fast, it's technical, nice little story of the radicals promising to be busy best friends forever, then of course turning on each other, and it's the Attitude Era, so the fans are mega into everything. Number 8, Tyler Breeze versus Sami Zayn versus Tyson Kidd versus Adrian Neville, NXT TakeOver Fatal 4-Way. Ah yes, the first example of the current NXT tradition of stealing names of main roster pay-per-views that the main roster doesn't want anymore. Anyway, NXT TakeOver Fatal 4-Way has a main event, and that main event is a Fatal 4-Way. I know I've shocked you. This was a truly glorious time in NXT. The women's division was great, the tag division was great, and the main event scene was dominated by the rise of Sami Zayn. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but if you give Sami Zayn a long-running, consistently booked storyline, it tends to be a smidge good. The storyline here was that Sami Zayn was one of the best wrestlers in the world, but he lacked that killer instinct required to win the big one. And once again, he comes within a tummy hair of victory before it's snatched away. All 4 wrestlers are super workers, and their spot-heavy flippity serendipity in this match was one of the first major statements of NXT as the best produced indie fed of all time. Number 7, Kurt Angle versus Eddie Guerrero versus Chris Benoit versus Edge, SmackDown, December 5th, 2002. Ooh, a match you might not have heard of in a million lists. That's fun, but first a concept I've talked about a fair few times, the SmackDown 6. In 2002, Paul Heyman was in charge of booking the Blue brand and chanced upon an absolutely radical strategy of taking the 5 best wrestlers he knew and Chavo Guerrero and have them wrestle each other in various formations forever. In the lead up to Armageddon 2002, the Big Show was WWE champion because Paul Heyman wasn't the perfect booker, and the main event of the December 5th SmackDown was a Fatal 4-Way elimination match between 4 of the best in-ring workers of that or any generation, and they gave it 20 minutes. A fan-tastic match with a brilliant narrative of Edge working with a hurt wheel, yet making it to the final 2, tying it all together. The last 5 minutes between Kurt and Edge are especially indie-rific, with countless kickouts to pop the electric crowd every single time. A wonderful match, well worth finding on the network or the Peacock or whatever you have. Number 6, Adam Cole versus Adam Page versus Jay White versus Kazuchika Okada, Forbidden Door 1. Like, Yeah, sure, the match ended in the worst possible way because Adam Cole got his bell rung mid-match, leading to an injury that would end up taking him out of action for almost a year. But hey, the match leading up to the ending was wicked, sweet, super cool. Sort of the story of Forbidden Door in general, really. Cursed with injuries, but somehow one of the best shows of the year, due in no small part to matches like this. 4 men who Vince would never push, doing super work for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. Everyone got a chance to shine, and especially fans got to see a sneak peek into what an Adam Page Kazuchika Okada feud in New Japan might look like, and yes, that please. Jay White retaining his not quite as beautiful as it used to look belt was somewhat inevitable, and the concern over Adam Cole might have taken the air out of the building when it came to the finish, but this is still a blistering display of talent, hyper-athleticism, and a bunch of lads whomping the stuffing out of each other. Number 5, Brock Lesnar versus Braun Strowman versus Samoa Joe versus Roman Reigns, SummerSlam 2017. Meat. Some people say that booking a fatal 4-way match is an indication that you failed to book a good singles feud. Those people are boring people called Clive, because sometimes the only reason you need to book a match is, it'd be fun though, eh? And that's exactly the reasoning going into this all-beef-beef-ageddon. The 4 strongest boys in the company put in one ring and told to go for it because wrestling can just be silly fun sometimes. And the match is all that and more. Samoa Joe running around squeezing fools' ghosts out through their neck, Brock holding a parade through the streets of Suplex City, Roman's punching everybody, and Braun is a level above all of them, relentlessly not being finished with Brock Lesnar, putting him through announce table after announce table as a live crowd pissed themselves with laughter and hoorays. The match isn't exactly riddled with psychology, but this isn't one of those joints. This is a car crash and a bloody fun time like all car crashes aren't. Number 4, Shawn Michaels versus John Cena versus Randy Orton versus Edge, Backlash 2007. You should never be happy that anyone gets injured, but because Triple H went down before Mania 23, we got the utterly wonderful Shawn Michaels-John Cena feud, which produced 3 all-time great matches. Their main event Mania match, their rematch in London, which ranks highly on the list of all-time best Raw matches, and now this, a fatal 4-way with both men and rated RKO, aka Pritchard and Judy. It's possibly the best Backlash match that isn't The Rock versus Triple H. This is all action, all the time. Cena and Michaels blowing off their feud, and a nice narrative vein and waiting for the sudden but inevitable implosion of the heel, air quotes, allies, end quotes. There's almost no fat on this match, going from A spot to A spot, including a closing sprint of oops all finishers, which might just rank as one of the best endings to a pay-per-view match that WWE have ever done. Number 3, Will Ospreay versus Hiromu Takahashi versus Kushida versus Marty Scurll, Wrestle Kingdom 12. New Japan don't do fatal 4-ways, but if they did, they'd be the best fatal 4-ways in the world. New Japan, especially when it comes to Wrestle Kingdom, their biggest show of the year, much prefer to showcase singles matches at the top of their cards, but at Wrestle Kingdom 12 they made an exception, running a fatal 4-way for Scurll's Junior Heavyweight Championship. Scurll may be persona non grata in wrestling right now, but the quality of this match can't be overlooked. Pretty much all 4 competitors had rich history with each other. Kushida and Takahashi had infamous matches, same with Kushida, Ospreay, and Scurll and Ospreay's feud is carved into British wrestling history. Callbacks were aplenty in this match, which somehow ran for nearly 20 minutes without ever slowing down, crammed with gnarly spots like Ospreay's moonsault from the lighting rig and Takahashi going mental with sunset flip powerbombs to the goddamn outside. It's a lot, but it's very good, such is the way of the doctors of Flipponomics. Number 2, The Miz versus Cesaro versus Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn, Extreme Rules 2016. The lad gets a lot of hate, but I really like The Miz's IC title run of 2016, beginning by stamping on Zack Ryder's dreams the day after WrestleMania, and ending with Dolph Ziggler's dreams stamping on him at No Mercy 6 months later. Not all the pay-per-view matches in those 6 months were perfect, but goodness, the first one was a phenomenal fatal 4-way for the title, featuring 3 Ring of Honor veterans Ring of Honoring the shit out of each other, and 1 douche cone trying to sports entertainment his way to victory. Add to that the Kevin Owens-Sami Zayn feud running as wild as it ever did, and Cesaro's uncanny ability to break reason and physics. And in the words of the great Carl Weathers, baby, you got a stew going. Everything about this worked, to the point that the 4 lads received a well-deserved standing ovation before the match was even over, with the crowd rabid for every convincing near fall, and there were oh so many of those, none more so than the closing spot, Zayn getting the haluva kick before Kevin Owens ruined his life just one more time, allowing Miz to swipe the W. Brilliant. And number 1, TLC's 3 and 4, SmackDown 2001 and Raw 2002. Pretty mad that WWE did 2 TLC matches on pay-per-view. They were regarded as some of the greatest matches of all time. Then 2 TLC matches on free TV for some reason, which were then regarded as 2 of the best matches in SmackDown and Raw history respectively. Then they just thought, nah, we won't do any more of those matches for 4 more years. Weird. Anyway, I've lumped TLC's 3 and 4 together because A, they're both bloody brilliant, and B, they're both technically fatal 4-ways. TLC 3 on SmackDown in May 2001 saw Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit defending their tag titles against the Hardys, the Dudleys, and Edge and Christian. TLC 4 on Raw, October 2002, saw Kane defend his and the Hurricanes title solo against Christian and Chris Jericho, Bubba Ray and Spike Dudley, and RVD and Jeff Hardy, winning the match before Triple H came out to accuse him of killing Katie Vick. Delightful. Both matches are insanely good, way too good to not be on pay-per-view, but then we were spoiled back then. Describing how good they are would just involve listing spots, so seek them out to watch them again, especially TLC 3, which is the original TLC teams, plus Jericho and Benoit, and some of the spots in that one were truly horrible, including Benoit doing a diving headbutt to the floor, injuring him to the point where he'd later that year have to be shelved for months, but then continuing the match to the point of being the dude to pull down the belts. Insane that we got these on telly, and for the suffering everyone put themselves through, giving them the top spot, well, it seems like the least we can do. And that's our list. What's your favorite Fatal 4-Way match? Let us know in the comments, and check out last week's list where we run down the 10 worst Night of Champions matches ever. That was back when the company had 9 titles, and those titles were World Tag Team Championship, Cruiserweight Championship, ECW Championship, Intercontinental Championship, US Championship, WWE Tag Team Championship, World Heavyweight Championship, Women's Championship, WWE Championship. Please don't drink every time I say the word championship in this list. I will not be responsible for your liver doing a tope suicida.